Hey guys, I'm back for another review, and this one is a big one. We're going to be talking about Empire #1. So, after all that build up and months of delays due to the coronavirus, the first Empire issue is here, and it's quite the comic. I'm going to have to kind of go through it with it out and helping me along because I'm going to have trouble kind of going over everything and keeping track of it in a consistent way. So, I guess we should start with what's been set up across the other two issues. And I don't know how, like, this issue does a pretty good job of it explaining everything, but it definitely helps to have read Empyre Avengers #0 and Empyre Fantastic Four #0, because it really takes those two teams and puts them right where they are at the start of this book. So basically, I think the best way to understand all this is thousands or millions of years ago, there was once just the Skrull Empire against relatively primitive Kree and another race called the Cotati, I believe. I gotta get that right. Hang on. Cotati. Cotati are like these relatively advanced plant people. And the Skrulls decided to hold a little competition where they wanted to pit these two races, the Cotati against the Kree, to see which of the two races were worth elevating technology-wise so that they might be worth being part of the Skrull Empire, which was then like a huge honor and would have been a big deal for either race. The Skrulls are relatively primitive, Cotati are all plant-based but relatively advanced, so the Skrulls at random picked Earth's moon, created a little pocket of oxygen that would one day become a major Marvel location known as the Blue Area of the Moon, grew basically an abandoned city and said, all right, you two races, like, fight it out. Whoever wins becomes part of the Skrull Empire. Cotati flourished and won, and they were the clear winners, so the Kree slaughtered them for it. It was considered one of the greatest crimes in galactic history, and over the years, the Kree grew into the vast empire that most of you should know from like Captain Marvel and Guardians of the Galaxy movies, or even just from the comics, as this powerful alien race. And then they ended up getting into millennia-long warfare with the Skrulls, never knowing peace, until the events leading up to Empire, when finally the two empires are unified under a young Avenger named Hulkling, who basically shares, one of his parents was Kree, the other was Skrull, and so he represents like a possible unified race and takes over as their new emperor of a unified Kree-Skrull alliance, which changes everything. And the Fantastic Four, we're learning, like, it basically destroyed the galactic economy because the entire economy depended on the assumption that the Kree and the Skrull would always be at war. And now that they didn't, basically the intergalactic currency has collapsed, there's all these economic issues, and meanwhile, the Kree-Skrull alliance is, like, moving in on Earth, while the Avengers discover the Cotati have returned and are surviving on the blue area of the moon, or some area of the moon where they've created a little plant civilization. And they're worried the Kree and the Skrull are here to wipe them out. So that's the relatively ambitious backstory to all of this. I will say it's certainly going to be a fault in Empire going forward that you kind of need to know all of that to really appreciate what's happening here. They do explain a great deal of that in this comic, and if you read the tie-ins, and they explain all of it, so debate whether or not that has value amongst yourselves. I certainly see the argument for that not being great, but at least the tie-ins have value. I think there's something to that, and I do like how the tie-ins have been really well connected with the main series of Empire so far, and we'll see more of that in another book we're going to talk about later. So then we cut to, well, like I said, like just all the major players dealing with everything I've just talked about. There's this being called Koi, who's like the celestial messiah of the Cotati, and he promises to, like, have a place for the Avengers in their garden forever once all this is done, and they're very grateful for the Avengers standing up for them. The Fantastic Four are with the Skrulls and the Kree, trying to make sense of all of this. Hulkling is promising that they're doing the right thing here, but they don't have time to explain. and they need to attack the Cotati. The Avengers are like, well, you're not gonna like wipe out these people again. And they get into battle. And what follows is one of the most fascinating battles I've ever seen. The Avengers, the Kree and the Skrull all get into a fight with like the Avengers and the Fantastic Four going up against the Kree and the Skrulls, but neither side wants to kill. The Avengers and the Fantastic Four themselves and want to be superheroes and don't want to hurt anyone, but Hulkling also has that attitude and orders them to not be lethal. And it becomes this insane dance where, like, well, first of all, the Ghost Rider starts piloting the Quinjet, and that's what results. So that's an amazing little addition. And then the Kree and the Skrulls are like tearing apart the ship, and they're all battling each other. Black Panther rolls out in the giant mech suit, but they all know that they're not trying to kill each other, and it's quite interesting. So this battle goes on for some time, but meanwhile the Trinity of the Avengers, Stark, Thor, and Captain America are still on the blue area of the moon, what I assume is the blue area of the moon. Thor throws his hammer, and it goes and goes and goes, and they have a cool little bit of narration of it. And it goes all the way to the Kree Skrull flagship, and Hulkling blocks it with his sword. I don't know what I'm doing the gesture, you can't see it on camera even. Just an awesome little shot. It's flushed out from the camera, I can see from my view, but it's a good little image. And the artwork in this, I should say, I haven't even gone into that. This book is by Al Ewing and Dan Slott for the story, but the script is by Al Ewing. Valerio Schiti does the art, and Marte Garcia does the coloring, and this book looks awesome. Fine, crisp details, excellent facial work, like expressions and stuff, and just wonderfully creative art. So the whole point is the Mjolnir's an antennae for Stark to deliver his little virus, and I love the little icon there. And it just cripples the entire Kree Skrull fleet in one fell swoop. And it feels like an earned moment. Stark talks about how they've been fighting the Kree and the Skrulls for so long, he just knows their technology inside and out. And then Koi goes, "Thank you, Avengers. Thank you so very much," with a sinister little smile on his face. And at that moment, it is clear. I had already kind of gotten to this conclusion at this point where it's like, uh-oh, the Avengers won that fight a little too easily. And sure enough, the Cotati turn out to not be having the best ideas in mind, and they start this weird plant crystal thing that creates insane growth within the Kree Skrull ship, and all the Kree and Skrulls start getting horribly killed, along with Reed Richards and Ben Grimm. And Tony Stark starts freaking out, like, oh no, I've screwed up horribly. Like, he immediately acknowledges, like, oh god, what have I done? And Reed Richards also recognizes Tony's mistake and is kind of consciously thinking about it too. And then Koi just says, here, I'll do the whole thing. "Let all the animal worlds fall, and the Cotati rise anew, master of the cosmos, as they always should have been. For here we plant the seed of the Empyrean. On this planet we begin our empire." He stands over Earth with all this foliage growing and the Cotati transforming and them like altering the gathered Kree Skrull armada, just slaughtering them and converting them into this new plant-based empire, and them just turning on Earth. So, it's a lot. It's a big book and kind of throws a huge amount of weight around in its story, but I really like it. More or less. I do have some concerns. There's little bits of Dan Slott in this story where like his awkward dialogue kind of creeps through, and it feels like it interferes with the awesomeness of what Al Ewing's trying here and all his creative ideas, because a lot of his fingerprints are on this whole thing. I really love the crazy fight where they're not trying to kill each other, and we get like a Ghost Rider possessed Quinjet, the Kree recognizing it, and them having like some crazy warrior. He's like, and he just is like, "Oh, we've fought demons before. I've been engineered not to feel any guilt, so your penance stare will have no effect on me." That's cool. That's weird and insane, and I liked it. That was fun. The whole book's a lot of fun. But I do have to say, all the interesting little political and economic elements that had kind of been introduced in Avengers and Fantastic Four's little prelude comics to Empire seem to be abandoned for what could very well be a straightforward story of alien invaders, this time being plant people attacking Earth. And if true, well, we've gotten that kind of event before, and that leaves me far less excited about all of this. My thoughts are, I don't know. I don't know. Like, this was a pretty cool twist I didn't really see coming until the issue started to unfold. And once it did, it becomes interesting. It means that the Kree and the Skrull aren't bad guys, and Super Skrull has a lot of cool moments in this issue, along with one of the Kree, like, superior accusers. I forget her name, but it's not important. Like, they were kind of set up as the possible villains who were like manipulating Hulkling behind the scenes. And while that might be true, it seems like they were being genuine. They knew the Cotati were going to be a real threat. And the reason that they weren't explaining it fully to the Avengers is because the Kree war crimed them, and the Skrull were complicit in that war crime, and they probably don't want to acknowledge that they have to wipe out the Cotati again. And that's interesting. And once again, I'm kind of left with the same opinion I had going into Empire. And that is, well, I've been really enjoying the artwork. I don't know if I'd recommend this series yet. I kind of have a wait and see approach with this right now, where I'd want to kind of get more of the entire story going forward before I can really say whether or not I'd recommend you check out the series for yourself. There's a lot of cool bits and excellent dialogue, but I want to kind of get a better idea of where the story's going before I recommend it, because they're not being honest about it, but it's not like in a malicious way. There's more to this story than just a simple conflict with the Kree and the Skrull again. And I'm okay with that. I like that. But it could go a lot of ways, and if this is just a generic battle against a new alien threat, yeah, that's not very exciting. There's a lot of other exciting things that they could do with this, though, and I'm very curious to see what direction we're going in, because there was a lot of oh crap moments in all of this that I'm curious to see the end result of and what that's all about. So we'll have to see. I'm curious what everyone else thinks in the comment section, so please feel free to share your opinion of Empire so far. I'm sure we'll do more of this going forward. But next up, we got a cool issue to talk about, and that's Venom Beyond. So stay tuned for that. We should have time to do this and maybe another issue or two going forward, but we'll get to all of that in a bit. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time here on Comic Island.